right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for game one for EG.IdrA versus coL.CrunCher. And Sean, before we get started, there is something that I've got to point out. As much as I love those infestors right now in the newest patch, this game was actually played on 1-2-2. Because of the scheduling and the way that it works out, it should be known, and everyone should keep that in mind, that this is on the previous patch.
And also, keep in double mind that IdrA said that he had absolutely no fear of coL.CrunCher pre-patch or post-patch. IdrA, trusting in his play, knows that, hey, that patch came out in an unexpected time for everyone. And IdrA only just plays the game that he has presented. And that is one thing that I really, really admire quite a bit about IdrA's play style, is that even if he ends up with some sort of flawed mindset or flawed build, he will play it to the absolute best. He is one of the few players I've seen do styles that have already completely died out due to players finding big problems with him. But even when IdrA plays them, he's able to just demolish the best of the best.
Yeah, and we've certainly seen him do that in not only like online competitions, but at LAN competitions or in major events as well. And definitely something that you got to keep in mind is that this guy's experience is above and beyond a lot of the gamers that are currently making names for themselves in StarCraft 2. And that does go a long way. It doesn't mean that he's invincible by any means, but it certainly is something else that IdrA always brings to the table.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, IdrA just absolutely phenomenal player. We do see there's that spawning pool going down, and I love this play that Zergs have been doing a lot. You used to see Zergs go for extractor and then pool, opt for an extremely fast Zergling speed, but Zergs started to realize they don't actually need the speed quite that fast. So lately we've been seeing, you know, build a spawning pool, count to 20, and then build a gas geyser. You can actually sneak a hatchery in a couple of seconds earlier and still start that Zergling speed on time.
Yeah, and it does look like there's going to be a little fight here for the natural, but it's not going to even go down. That's just a scouting drone. The spawning pool is up now, and take a look at what's going on right now over at coL.CrunCher's base. He has gone for a forge, fast expand right here, gateway down as well, and pretty soon this drone is going to catch wind of it. Should be interesting to see how IdrA is going to react. And you know what? Probably he might be okay with the fact that he knows that this is going to be a little bit longer game.
Yeah, IdrA loves the longer games. As we always say, in competitive theory, the better players always favor the longer games because it means more decisions to make and therefore more correct decisions for that good player. In coL.CrunCher's camp, we do see those two assimilators going down. We see that wall off going down. And one thing to note, almost always Protosses now are building that gateway before the photon cannon, because if there is some sort of rush, they do a fake wall off with a second gateway. And then right when the first gateway finishes, they just cancel and replace it with a cybernetics core, exactly as we see coL.CrunCher's wall off looking. So it's a very, very easy way to guarantee kind of a fast tech. And as we do see that Nexus going down for coL.CrunCher, it looks like the game is going to transition into something very long term. There's really no units on the map for either players, with the exception of those 4 Zerglings from IdrA.
Yeah, not a whole lot at all. I mean, really just establishing things, and I think that IdrA saying that he expected his opponent to just 4-gate him all day long is not necessarily going to be the case, as CrunCher certainly knows, again, the strengths and the weaknesses of IdrA, and he can play to those as well. So we are going to get Stalker coming out right now. No warp gate as of yet, and CrunCher is starting to get some probes over here as expansion. There we see the transfer of the drones over here. One probe does get inside, but it will be chased out. Either those lings or that queen will make that probe meet its demise, and there it is. So things really starting to get off on track here. Where do we go from here? I guess that is the big question.
Well, already there's a pretty cool decision going on by CrunCher. We see that he's actually getting stalkers out of that gateway. Occasionally you'll see one in an early expand, but rarely will you see 2 in a row like CrunCher's doing. And there's the Stargate going down, so it's going to be one of those infamous air openings that IdrA complains about so much. IdrA says time and time again in podcasts and interviews that he struggles lots against those early Void Ray, early Phoenix plays, any sort of air build.
And just take a look. We are seeing a lot of drones coming out for EG.IdrA right now. No extra queens on the way, but we do have a third base coming up here. And going to be interested to see what will come out. And we will have a Void Ray coming out of that Stargate right away. Meanwhile, seems like no more production on those stalkers. But the 2 stalkers that he did make are now in the back taking down these rocks. And I really do like this because it opens up a few options. First off, he could decide that he wants to put a third base there. I don't think that's necessarily what he's totally going for here. But if he breaks down both back rocks, he is going to have another attack path to EG.IdrA because he's likely going to keep expanding north. Meanwhile, a couple lings just outside. See what is going on at CrunCher's, but he's got those 2 cannons, so going to make it very difficult for him to see anything.
Yeah, I love this style of knocking down the top side. This is what White Rob popularized on this map. And oh no, EG.IdrA's going to see absolutely everything. He sees the Void Ray, he sees the Stalkers, he sees the backdoor getting knocked down. This is real dangerous for a couple of reasons. coL.CrunCher's opening has been completely revealed, but more importantly, there is, EG.IdrA does know that those backdoors are being knocked down, so that does mean that he could likely begin putting a little bit of pressure on that backside if he so desired. And this is a very vulnerable period for EG.IdrA. Notice that that creep is not yet joined to that third base. EG.IdrA is actually sprinting with creep tumors to try to join those 2 bases together as quickly as he can. Otherwise, he will be unable to defend against this early Void Ray. And we also see 2 Phoenixes moving out now for CrunCher, as well as a robotics facility that is already completed in the main with only 1 gateway down. So a very, very tech-heavy build by CrunCher.
Yeah, and you know what? Without that creep down, the Hydras that inevitably are going to be coming out are not going to have an easy time moving in between bases. That'll give that advantage over to those Phoenixes. So we do see a couple of Spore Crawlers going down, trying to find their locations. Do see one at the third, maybe one at the main as well. Here come 3 Phoenixes lifting up a Queen, canceled as the second Queen comes out, and they see the Spore Crawler as well. Now we do have 6 Hydras on the way, and he wants to make sure it's going to be important that he gets those Hydras out and gets some damage done before these Phoenix numbers increases, but I do not see any additional Phoenixes on the way.
Yeah, it looks like CrunCher is just going to be sticking to this 3 Phoenix, 1 Void Ray mix. And even with the Void Ray, we see the CrunCher has been relatively passive, just basically poking around the map, trying to find some Overlords. But if we even select that Void Ray, we see that no kills are registered. Yeah. So nothing really too noteworthy in the harass department for CrunCher, but CrunCher's doing a very, very scary timing. What he's going to do is he's going to begin getting those Colossi very quickly. He gets the Robo Bay before he gets all the extra warp gates, so he can begin getting that Colossus count nice and high early on. And then when he does a push, he has a lot of Colossi out very early. And wow, it looks like CrunCher probably not even going to be favoring an early push, just going to favor kind of a defensive play as he ends up getting this Nexus at the north position, which is going to increasingly put more and more pressure on EG.IdrA, because EG.IdrA really wants to loop up to that top left main as well.
Right, and so CrunCher can just knock down those rocks and eventually march right in. And I'm sure that EG.IdrA will begin some creep spread up there as well, not only to connect those, but also get some vision, see what's going on. We do have a few more Hydras coming out on the field, but pretty much the production of those have stopped. We've got a Spire going down, +1 attack. We've got Roach speed and +1 Carapace coming out, as well as +1 ground weapons over here for the Protoss. Still some Lings just outside, and again, we're not seeing any more, really any more air units, but as you mentioned, that Colossus count going to start growing. We now have 4 gates out on the field as well, and these Stalkers be a good choice over here. Look at this, EG.IdrA also throwing down a 4th base here, so really, really starting to get his spread on.
And look at this, we go to the unit station. 73 drones for EG.IdrA.
Wow.
There's all that scary tension we were blabbering about. Oh, Void Ray's coming. Oh, Phoenix is coming. And EG.IdrA just kept hitting that D button. He doesn't need units to be able to combat Void Rays and Phoenixes. He's just going to get a ridiculous drone count. And really around that 75 mark is the money mark for a lot of Zerg players, because it does allow them to get their macro on and still have a reasonably sized army. And there are the 5 Corruptors coming out right now, the +1 air weapons. No Hive tech coming up yet. Whoopsie daisies, a Phoenix suicides into that Overlord, and it does look like CrunCher's Expo at the north is up as well. So both players, most importantly, have gotten the chance to do exactly what they want. So the question is, whose overall structure of build is going to be the best?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and just taking a look at what we've got, Colossus and Stalkers here, and with a couple of Void Rays mixed in. Right now, the Roaches have started to come out along with those Corruptors. Now, we've actually seen EG.IdrA in some previous matches, and we see this happen with a lot of Zergs, basically overmake those Corruptors and then not really have anything to do with them. And then that, of course, limits your ground army as well. But I like this mix as far as the damage is concerned. Looking at the upgrades right now, it is 1-1. I believe for both here, no, we don't have +1 army here for the Protoss, but +1 attack. And it does look like he's going to move his army here to the north, just make sure. And EG.IdrA could be moving out here, or at least checking things out at the tower. He will take out a Scouting Zealot and a Phoenix, and that will also kind of give away what he's got out on the field.
I'm a little scared, though, for EG.IdrA because of the fact that he has not yet gotten an infestation pit. He has not begun that hive tech. Yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in the mid-game, and there it is. That's quite a late infestation pit. This is a big danger where you end up with tons of Hydras, Corruptors, and Roaches, but you're unable to really do much with them, and I think EG.IdrA realizes that he's going to go ahead and make a push for the main, and it looks like CrunCher has absolutely nothing, and there's a Contaminate on that robotics facility in the main as well, so no more Colossus production for just a brief period of time. Wow. Does look like EG.IdrA manages to pick off both cannons and that key cybernetics core, and those Corruptors are just parked, ready to start chewing on those Colossi or on those Corruptors, or excuse me, those Void Rays. But it looks like CrunCher does manage to keep that army organized. EG.IdrA is going to be able to do a little bit of damage with those Roaches in the worker line of CrunCher, but wow. As usual, that Army of Death has a well-deserved name, and it looks like CrunCher getting a Forge and a Cybernetics Core in the main as well, so that way he can continue to upgrade. But again, the Hive from EG.IdrA only just now getting started at the 16-minute mark. EG.IdrA has completely ceased all expanding for the time being. He knows that once that Void Ray Colossus army gets big enough, it's going to be very, very tough to stop.
Well, either he has plans to go Broodlords, or he is just, again, really going to get this Corruptor count too high. He's going to have about 15 out on the field right here, and he is starting to spread out his Overlords here, get a creep highway going. I feel like he did a lot of damage in that attack. Already you could see that the Cybernetics Core and the Forge was rebuilt, and he managed to do a little bit of damage to the probe line as well. And just look at this Zerg spread right here. Overlords going everywhere. Here comes the main army up the ramp once again to attack, going to go after that Forge. Colossus do look over the edge, but are stopped short by those Corruptors. It does look like the Side Core is going to get taken down yet again, and the Corruptors will go in with that number. Oh my gosh, those Void Rays actually doing a really, really good job. And he looks like he's going to attack again.
9 Void Rays out right now for CrunCher. Once those numbers get to the double digits, it is so hard to stop. And EG.IdrA, I'm actually getting a little worried at the fact that he's poking at the front so much. He is drawing CrunCher to a very, very easy push. If EG.IdrA begins popping to the backside and then back to the front, CrunCher has to stay back in the main. He has to stay defensive, but right now CrunCher parking at the front. If EG.IdrA makes one big mistake, that is an immediate counter opportunity for CrunCher.
Yeah, and the Void Ray numbers are continuing to go up even more, using those Corruptors for some vision there. Get a little bit of damage done, and he's just continuing to pump out Roaches and Hydras at this point. More Corruptors on the way. We are getting Ventral Sacks, +2 air, +3 carapace, +3 missile attacks as well. I also saw that a Nidus Worm went down. No, I'm not sure if that's going to be for base reinforcement, but guys, stop for a moment and just look at the map. It is purple in about 65 to 70% of this map, and so that does mean that eventually CrunCher can run out. You look at his main, he's got just a few minerals here and there. What
and the Nidus Worm at the top is going to get picked off, gets morphed in range of the cannon, and even though that got picked off so easily, I like that play by EG.IdrA, because look at CrunCher's entire army getting repositioned, but it looks like it's going up to the north. That can be very, very deadly, and oh no! +2 attack is getting researched at the Spire instead of a Greater Spire going down. Broodlords will not be up for an extremely long time still, so it looks like CrunCher, oh no, just moving over to the left side while EG.IdrA makes a big counterattack, but CrunCher clearly planning for that, has a bunch of cannons there at the front. EG.IdrA trying to worm his way in there, and it looks like very nice play by EG.IdrA. CrunCher's having to pull back absolutely everything, and there are the Corruptors cutting in the middle to try to get all the Void Rays, but that's exactly what CrunCher wants. Look at the Void Ray count for CrunCher, just going to rip those Corruptors apart. And EG.IdrA looks like he may be able to take out this Nexus, but no, he's going to be favoring those probes. And man, CrunCher in the unit counting station, we see 13 Void Rays out right now, and 18 Corruptors getting produced by EG.IdrA.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy right now. We do have another army from EG.IdrA coming in now. I'm surprised he didn't focus down that Nexus. He took down a lot of other buildings, and of course those Corruptors just melted right there. He does have a lot more out here, but I think the ground army to support here is just too devastating. Not to mention we've got the Colossus as well, and it looks like CrunCher could just move right in for an attack. Here come Corruptors from all angles while the ground army tries to do their best versus those Stalkers. Stalkers will blink forward, and I feel like the Protoss is still winning this with the Colossus. More Corruptors are coming out, and I think that the Protoss is going to walk away with the victory here after this battle.
And absolutely nothing remains for EG.IdrA. He has 71 Zerglings out on the field. Just held that Z button throughout the entire attack. Corruptors getting reproduced, but there's the no GG. EG.IdrA just leaves the game. Incredibly frustrating first match there for EG.IdrA. CrunCher sat and waited patiently, abused the architecture of that map to get the money mix, to get the exact number of Void Rays and Colossi that he wanted. And still, I would like to re-emphasize how late that Greater Spire was. EG.IdrA was stuck in mid-game mode for so long, and we saw that CrunCher couldn't move out, but right when CrunCher began to hit close to that maxed mark, he just pushed once, and that was way too much for EG.IdrA to handle.
That was insane considering how much that EG.IdrA had as far as map control and bases everywhere, but really it was a perfect unit composition, and it's not very often that we see the gazillion Void Rays used in that scenario, but it worked out for him early game, just kept adding on. By the end of the game, without any pressure at all, those are really, really hard for EG.IdrA to deal with, as we saw there, and so many Corruptors died today in that game. So many Corruptors.
I know there were 25 Corruptors in that final battle. It didn't even matter. I mean, in general, you know, Terrans flood Vikings and Zerg flood Corruptors, just basically saying, all right, as long as I can one or two shot those Colossi, I don't mind if I kind of have a smaller ground army. I just really don't want the Colossi in there. But even so, 25 Corruptors, apparently not quite enough. Needed just another 25 Corruptors, and he would have been A-okay. Incredible army strength.
I'd have to go back and look at the replays, but I'm not sure that I saw that much corruption going down in those battles.
Yeah. Gotta spam that C button.
It's hard to see. It's hard to see.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, CrunCher coming right out the gate with an early win, but I think he's going to have to really buckle down because that wasn't quite as much momentum of a win as you'd ordinarily think. Shakura's Plateau is generally the map where a lot of Zerg players accept that they're going to have a ton of trouble with that Colossus Void Ray ball. But now we're going to be moving on to Terminus RE, a much more widespread open map. EG.IdrA, who loves abusing the creep, who loves abusing those various attack paths, I think is going to be a lot happier on Terminus, is a lot happier about the ease of getting that third base. And with the huge push distances, I mean, we even saw between Tyler and HeyPro in that PAX Liquid show match series, even though Tyler had a max Colossus Void Ray army, the enormous distances allow a Zerg to build up a gigantic enough army to not kill it in the first attack, but with those second wave of units to be able to pick it off. And because the Colossi and Void Ray are so slow, it's a little bit more difficult for the Protoss. So I think that that's what EG.IdrA is going to have to rely on if he wants to win in this second game.
Well, I'm definitely agreeing with you, and I'm excited to see this one get started as coL.CrunCher does take a 1-0 lead over EG.IdrA here. Our first game for the PokerStrategy.com TSL3 round of 32. We're ending it off right here. It is day 4 of the round of 32. And Day, are you ready?
I am ready to rock and roll, Wheat.
All right, well, let's do it. We're going to get started here in just a moment with Game 2 between EG.IdrA and coL.CrunCher.